Raag kavi or night. Some people translate it as concentration, but it doesn't really make much meaning here. यस्य चेतं समुच्छिन्नं यस्य च एतं, जिसने ये है च एतं समुच्छिन्नं, मतलब उसको छिन्न कर दिया है, उसको काट दिया है. मूल, right from the मूल, not from the root, who has cut off such things right from the मूल. सर्वे देवा Bharating was Samadhi Divasi. Such a person would attain peace of mind both day and by night. That is the meaning. People give alms according to their faith and happy mental state. Those who get discontented with food and drink driven to others, he never attains peace of mind by day or night. On the other hand, one who has cut off roots from the root such thinking, he attains peace of mind by day. That is the implication of this.
नथि राग समूह दी, नथि दोष समूह हो, नथि मोह समम जालम, नथि तन्हा समा नदी.
नथि मतलब नहीं है, राग समूह मतलब राग के समान, अग्नि मतलब आग. आग के समान कोई आग नहीं है. नथि दोष समूह गहो, नहीं है दोष के समान. गहो मतलब जिनको पकड़ ले, ग्रहण कर ले, उनको कैप्चर कर ले. नथि मोह समम जालन, मोह जो है डिल्यूजन की जैसा कोई जाल नहीं है जिसमें कि हम फंस जाए. नथि तन्हा समा नदी, तन्हा जैसे तृष्णा जो है उसके समान कोई करंट नहीं है, नदी नहीं है जिसमें कि हम बह जाते हैं. So there is no fire like passion, no capturer like hatred, no net like delusion, and no torrent like tanha. Very often quoted verse. The story is associated is about 5 lay followers who were listening to discourse and Buddha was giving. So one of them was sleeping, other was just scratching the earth, and the third was looking at a tree, fourth was looking at the sky. So only one of them was listening attentively. So Ananda saw it carefully, and then when the discourse was over, he asked Buddha. I told him this is what was happening and why did they do such things. He explained the reasons, because associated with their past behavior. So one of them was a snake in the previous life, so he liked to sleep. The other one had been an animal, and third one was a monkey, so he wanted to look at the trees all the time. Fourth one was an astrologer, so he was looking at the sky all the time. He had a tendency of that kind. And the fifth one was a learned man, and therefore was able to listen with attention. And then he asked what prevented people from listening and attending to the Dhamma. I said, basically, it is passion and hatred, delusion and tanha which prevents people from looking at the Dhamma or listening to even. Last one.
Rasam vajaj mannesam, attano pandudasam, paresam hiso vajjani, ओपुनाति यथा भूषम, अत्तनो पन छादेती, कलिंबा कितवा सठो.
सुदर्शन मतलब बस सुपर है, आराम से देखा जा सकता है. वज्र मतलब मैल, डिफाइलमेंट. वज्रम दूसरे फॉल्ट, अन्यसम दूसरे के फॉल्ट बड़े आराम से देखे जा सकते हैं. अत्तनोपन दुदर्शनम, अपना जो है वो देखना बड़ा मुश्किल है. परेशम ही सो वज्जानी, दूसरे के जो फॉल्ट्स होते हैं, वज्र है नहीं मतलब जो उसके महल है दूसरे के. ओपुनाति यथाभूषण, ओपुनाति होता है तो विनोइंग करते हैं ना, इसकी भूसे की फैला देते हैं उसको. जैसे कि आदमी जो दूसरे के फॉल्ट्स है वो वन कैन स्प्रेड एंड विनो लाइक दैट ऑफ शेफ, मतलब वन कैन एक्सपोज देम वेरी इजीली. अत्तनों पर छा देती, लेकिन जो अपने हैं उनको पा देता है. कलिम्बा के तो वो सठो मतलब जो चीट है, जैसे कि बेईमान आदमी है वो अपने कोई कलिम्ब मतलब कोई गलत डाइस खेल रहा है और कोई गलत आ गई तो उसको छुपा देता है. So in a similar manner, one will conceal his faults in such a manner. So the story is about a rich man of a town, Madhya town named Mendaka. He wanted to see Buddha, but other teachers would prevent him from going there, and and say that they would criticize Buddha all the time and kind of demotivate him to go there. So once he happened to listen to teaching, and by listening to that he was attained the first level of awakening. Then Buddha told him that how many other teachers spoke ill of Buddha and didn't want him to go and listen to him. Then Buddha explained him by this verse that it is very natural to see others' faults and not to see one's own. Then he revealed the past existence of Madhika, that he was a rich man who had donated many things in his past life. So that is the fourth verse of this today. So we cover time. Good. The third verse is very often quoted. Nakti raga samoha gila. The examples given are very beautiful. राग के समान अग्नि नहीं, दोष के समान बंधन नहीं, मोह के समान कोई जाल नहीं, और कृष्णा के समान कोई बहाव नहीं, बहा के ले आएगा. Good. So, चलिए second chapter. What is the second chapter?
Ego again.
Answer.
Ego the current state of humanity.
पूरा फर्स्ट हो गया ना पूरा. सेकेंड इज ईगो. Basically, that chapter was about कोई नहीं है ना. कल तो बैठ गया था. कल तो बैठ गया था. हाँ, इसके बाद इसकी है. नहीं सर, तुम्हारी मेल पे रिप्लाई कर रहा है. एक बार फॉरवर्ड कर लोगे? नहीं सर. So I think Raman was thinking अगर कुछ first chapter का context देना था. अच्छा लगा. The first chapter was about flowering of consciousness. So Eckhart starts with saying that the flowers, when it came around many billion years ago, they required very delicate conditions, and first very few flowers would have come, and then suddenly the whole earth was filled with flowers. So that was the flowering phenomena, where as soon as the conditions are there, there is a widespread flowering. And he uses interesting terminologies. He says that this is true for many other things. For example, carbon. When there is a substantial jump into
the evolution of something which converts into very different things. For example, flowers come out of plants which are very different, and flowers are very delicate. So he said that flowering of carbons is like diamonds. They suddenly convert into diamonds, and flowering of some of those, I don't know what creates these crystals. So all the oil and all these things that we get from the. So he said that there is a similar flowering that will happen to the consciousness, and let me just go through that. And then he basically was saying that the normal conditions of that we face is a dysfunction, it's a disease, and because it's a people call it dukkha, maya, or original sin or illusion, and it's inherited. So we are in that inheritance, and it will take us time to get that right conditions, and suddenly the whole consciousness will start to change. And the examples of why he is calling them as dysfunction are all the world wars, or how humanity is killing humanity itself. Right? So he uses some interesting terminologies where he says that we've got a lot of intelligence, but that intelligence is accompanied by madness, and the intelligence has come as an evolution. And then he relates to religion, and he says again the same thing that we've been talking about. Being spiritual has nothing to do with what we believe, but what we do. And the religions came in. They were primarily for helping people become good, and then they got organized and got the same trap of ego. And he says that how the title of the book came up was that there is a the Old Testament and New Testament speak of collapse of the existing world order, and a new heaven and new earth will come. So he's saying that the collapse is very near, and a new consciousness will flow, and there are some. He says there are already some signs of that happening. So I think that concludes the first chapter.
The urgency of transformation. That is not done, that is practice.
And I think the next chapter, in next two chapters, he introduces the concepts of ego, or the sense of self that Rodney Smith calls, and many of these concepts are part of his first book in question answer form, but he categorized them into interesting ways to describe them. He talks of words and wonder, which means that when we look at something, we immediately put a word on top of it, and this is a very similar thing that for example, Krishnamurti also says a lot, that when we look at things, we very soon put a word on top of it, and we lose the wonder in that thing, because that we inherit the words, meaning, connotations, and all the stuff. And he says that everything has deep depth, very deep depth, but words, most of it cover it and put a label on it. So we lose the mystery in it, we lose the wonder in it, we lose the newness in it. And underneath everything, he says they are connected with the source of life, out of which it comes. Now, again, many of these, as I think we were discussing, his concepts are very similar to Vedantic concepts. He says underneath everything is a common source of life, out of which everything else comes up, and we are not, and all things are connected, and we don't see them because we try to see it superficially by associating that with language. And when we don't cover up the word with all the language of the labels, it is a miraculous returns to life. And for that to happen, you need to disentangle again the sense of self, which is I, that we have mixed up with everything. We have identified we have identified the things with the I, and we started to see them as same things. And the thing that when we live in the world, the faster we attach ourselves or put verbal and mental labels, more deadened our life becomes. We live in the world of the language and its limitations. And interestingly, he says, by doing this, cleverness is gained, but wisdom is lost, and so are joy, love, and creativity. So that was very interesting for me to know.
This is a very subtle point. It comes up in discourses also. One of from Bhikkhu has written a very book on it, called Concept and Reality. It's of course a bit. It's an attempt to explain the formation. We had read one discourse, I think, here also. Sanya Prapanch or something like that. I know that how Sanya causes the proliferation of this whole world. Now this issue of concept, this use is pointed out by many people. I think Goldstein also mentioned, if I remember, that how because of the concept we get into illusion of permanence. This notion of I also arises because of the concept. So we say this is hand, so this is a concept of a hand. And we think hand, concepts don't change, so hand remains the same. So right from childhood till we grow old, we think this is a hand. Same. And so implicitly, because we don't think about it, we think, oh, this is a hand. So it has been the hands. Also right from childhood it has been the hand. So in this manner, because the concepts kind of freeze the reality, so we tend to forget the fact of impermanence. And that creates the whole of the chain of delusions. So this is a very interesting point, which we need to, I mean, it's a philosophical point, but it has a great implication in terms of the delusion in which we get snared all the time. Because of course, we see a tree and it's a tree and we forget, we don't put attention on it. We see a thing and we don't put attention on it. As if all the trees are same, all the women, so all the women are same, we put a label on it and then we forget about it. Then we don't put attention because we think that we understand. By making a concept of reality, we think our sab samajh mein aa gaya. So from the point of view of science, it is important because then you categorize them in concepts and then you understand. That's why you say cleverness I have here. You can manipulate them easily. But the part of it which distinguishes one person from another, one tree from another, is lost. So from scientific perspective, concepts are the ones which form the theory, on which theories are formed. But from the perspective of living, they kind of strip down the reality to its basic characteristics without looking at the totality.
I also feel that because we form concepts and then when we manufacture things, we use concept to manufacture reality, so to speak. So all tones look similar, all flower vases look similar. So the fact that this is different from another object, the chance of you discovering that is even less in man-made objects. At least nature is such where a leaf is always different from other leaves. You can never have two leaves which are similar. but we make sure that all iPads are similar, of course, because it is concept converting into reality.
That is basically because of the kind of manufacturing process.
Yes, but that comes from the fact that we assume concept to be, so it's different from getting 100 cows out of 10 cows. Why? That's a different manufacturing process as compared to, so we perpetuate the illusion more.
What's the name and author of that sir is talking about? I think Goldstein, no?
No, concept and reality is written by Bhikkhu Jnanananda.
Bhikkhu Jnanananda.
So it is published by Buddhist Publication
I
Society.
think it is it's online.
Double.
What is how it is? You can't see it. Well, it has it.
Now they can.
Pura. This is the book. This is the first page of the book. It's a high technology. You are sitting on your phone right now. It's a bit dense book, but very profound. Very profound. You can very often correlate from understanding this sanyaya, and how the proliferation of concepts occurs. I think we had one discourse that this word sanyaya panchayat. Or two so that we had studied unprepared.
So on this concept and how we create permanence to concept, I had been thinking, and we had a discussion with Akhilesh once Nizar was there, was on what is a tree and when does it die? For example, a tree, if you take a branch of a tree and you grow it again, other tree grows up, and a tree would generally decay, but you would never put a point where now the tree is dead. It could be, the chances of its revival would be very less, but if sufficient conditions are there, maybe it will revive again. So it's very difficult to say when the tree is dying and a new tree is getting born, because it's just getting replicated through its own parts.
I mean, that's the issue about its replication and some genes getting transferred. But the fact is that the tree will die. That particular tree, that particular manifestation will get lost. But its effects will continue in the form of seed, for example. Vedanta also gives an example. The seed which is there, fruit is there, so that the seed which comes out from there, it falls somewhere on the ground. That's how the karma sankhara also multiply. So if you don't allow those seeds to germinate, then it will not multiply. So that is the analogy used in discourses that
For example, if we look at the continuum of different kind of species, and when we believe that they die, for example, viruses and cells, they just kind of replicate to other forms of life, to the forms of animals and humans. There's a specific point where we say, this organism has died. And if you go lower in the continuum, then it becomes even more fuzzier. For say, viruses could live for millions of years without, and they could just come back. There is no death for a virus.
more complex the structure, right, more vulnerable it becomes to extinction. Because dinosaurs, for example, there's no one available, fortunately. There's only the structure of it, the bony structure of it available in the British Museum. Nobody else knows what it was and how they become extinct. That's why people are talking of the extinction of human species also someday if things don't correct up.
talked about the seed and the replication, and therefore if Sankharas are, if we basically eventually get rid of most of our Sankharas or all of it, then it would not propagate further. So that would be like the stream ending somewhere. So if that is the goal for everyone, every organism or every, eventually, so then what is the goal? The goal is that eventually the entire universe, there is no one left.
There's nothing like a whole, you know. So
What will happen if
that is
Sankhara is finished?
That's never going to happen. That will never happen that everybody's Sankhara is finished and the world will end in that manner. But it's someday it will end out. The whole world system ends. Then there's the nature of things which arise and pass. The planet will end, the sun will end, the moon, the galaxy will end. But then it will end along with people who are there on it. The concept of Pralaya in the ancient mythology seems to be positing what people are nowadays talking, Say the all glaciers melt and sea level rise by 5 meters. So what will be left on Earth? Nothing will be left except other than water. Or an asteroid striking Earth, as people are saying, possibility of any asteroid striking Earth will just be splintered into parts, matter ends. So those possibilities, in fact, in one state, Buddha points out this also. That even the whole Earth, the Chakravala, what should we call galaxies, end someday. There's nothing permanent in it.
But is that the same as this other situation? Because the physical body will die even if there is no pralaya. But then we believe, based on this, that because of the sankharas, there will be some other form. Now, even if physically, let's say there is water everywhere, then physically the body has died. But how will that prevent the sankharas from leading to another?
Yeah.
So that is a physical destruction. That is different. What I'm saying is, if eventually by getting rid of all your sankharas, the cycle of rebirth stops, and then if everyone starts to achieve that, then eventually what we are saying is all the misery in the universe will get rid because there is no one who is born again. Is that the ideal outcome? I mean, where is this leading?
There's nothing like that. Is the point, That is really the important point, because many times people tend to project it like that. There's nothing like an ideal. Reality is not ideal. Reality is real. And reality will be that there will be varied manifestations of existence. It will always be there. It's never going to happen that the whole existence, all the people will get enlightened. And I think it is quote where the Jan Sweden also mentions it. Like the possibility is there, but I don't take much on that possibility. That all the 7 billion people will get enlightened and there will be no misery on the earth. It's never going to happen. It's not a part of the characteristic of reality. Of reality is impermanent, changing, all the time changing. So one will not be worried that people will get all enlightened and as you were saying somewhere, then if everybody becomes a monk, who will feed us? So he asked them, are you worried?
There is this concept of cyclic time, pralaya,
in all the mythologies, not only that, in all world mythologies, the process of ending a world system. But as you rightly said, that is the physical ending of it.
Yes.
The ending of the seeds of consciousness is not spoken. So how will they manifest if in case this happens? Obviously they will manifest in some other form which is possible to manifest at that case. After all, even if we believe in Big Bang, something happened and some flowering of consciousness took place in whatever form it was possible at that time.
I think there are some religions who talk of this, the word rupture or something, where they say a mass of everybody who believes in Jesus is going to be taken to, and so on, right? So it's a notion of utopia which actually causes a lot of anxiety. But it is okay, we will not go there. But there are ideas which of mass of people getting enlightened.
So even he is also mentioning that this has become easier. What he is trying to say is that that as more and more people practice, and we have seen it in science also. I think I mentioned last time.
Yes, last time you mentioned.
Morphogenetic field hypothesis that when some person does some activity, in future it becomes easier for people to do. The first person to go up to the Everest was very rare, and once it happened, now everybody seems to be going up as if it is a simple thing. And similarly about so many other activities. And this scientifically it is said there is some form creating field which is strengthened by the process. So it seems so that if a critical mass is there who is trying to do an activity, then for others it becomes easier. That seems to be the law, whatever name you want to give it.
So I think, as I said, Eckhart focuses a lot on what he's calling ego, which is the feeling that I am there, sense of I. And he says that that is the greatest error as well as deepest truth. And the I includes everything that is related to the sense of self, which is me, my, mine, myself. This reminds me of the sutta that this is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself. So that was an interesting thing that he was also mentioning that this includes all of these things. And he quotes Albert Einstein, where he said that I is an optical illusion of consciousness. And it seems like Einstein has spoken a lot about the I or the spiritual stuff.
This quotation is associated with the fact when he was dying, and somebody asked him, "Do you feel that you're dying, then the whole existence is ending for you?" Then he gave this answer. And actually, this much I understand. There's life, and life will continue. This individuality is only an optical illusion created of consciousness.
It is very interesting that all of those quantum physicists at that time had thought of these things.
Yeah.
Heisenberg and
They thought of these things. They had
Oppenheimer and
Einstein did not believe in them, right?
Here Einstein had an independent way of thinking.
Yeah.
He didn't believe in. He always suspected that quantum theory is
He
incomplete.
said God will not clear eyes.
Incomplete, so we have not understood it. But that's the way it is. He was humble enough to say that we have not understood. You can't say this is the ultimate. That's not his perception of it. But there's Arvind Schrödinger wrote a book, what is life?
What is life?
Yeah. And he's tried to use the quantum theory and mixed it with Vedanta.
So this is so interesting. Now these people who change the whole paradigm of physics, and who are considered to be at the epitome of science, they talk about all these things so naturally. But in the today's world,
most of the modern scientists don't agree with it. They think it is a kind of hyperbole and they just one carried away by they couldn't assimilate the thing. So if it is so, it is so. How can you extrapolate? So that book has been very heavily criticized for being non-scientific.
there are others who are considered obscurantists.
Even Fritjof Capra is
not respected
by the mainstream scientists, if you may call somebody a mainstream.
what does he do?
He also wrote called
Fritjof Capra wrote the Tao of Physics. He was the first person to bring
The
out the
directions, many books.
yeah. Fritjof Capra, then Gary Zukov's book became much more
The dancing
Gully Masters and all. So, but then they have been treated as some sort of mutation in the scientific community and to be kept away. Not most people, or I would say many of the mainstream scientists don't agree. In fact, this Rupert Sheldrake is considered as a heretic. He gave a talk in Google, and that was then removed from there. Because Google people removed it, and then people criticized and they put it again. I don't know what is the current status. They told them, some people told them that you are really, it's just like the church and the Galileo kind of thing, you are doing same thing. So they got a bit hurt and they tried to justify many people said that what he is saying is not scientific and all. So we have proved it. Give an experiment to prove what else do you want. So there was a lot of, if you see in net, you find a lot of discussion, especially on the talk which Sri Sheldrake gave at Google. Basically because those concepts don't fall in line with our mechanistic world. The science is a mechanistic world, in spite of all the changes. It's not easy to see this in that manner.
During it, even 70, 80 or 100 years back, the theoretical physics still had all that bent. But in modern world, for example, Einstein, Schrodinger, all of them, Heisenberg also, they were never related science with being absolute and then the life and the spirituality being completely separate. Einstein has written a lot about it. But is that in today's world that they have completely compartmentalized it, or
I don't know, there might be few, just like Rupert Sheldrake and others, just a few, not many. They somehow feel that this is not scientific in the sense of the rigorous sense of the term. See, in Middle Ages or even in 18th century, all scientists were philosophers. They had a perspective on life as a whole. They thought of studying nature. Whether it was Newton or Galileo or Copernicus or Pascal or anything. And even our Jagdish Chandra Bose, if you study his writings, you'll find it. So they had that bent of mind. Now things are much more materialistic. They are not willing to take that along.
David Bohm also, he's on mainstream. David Bohm is he had a lot of thoughts. He's also
though his book is the only one which is studied for quantum theory, his textbook, but he's seen as something happened to him.
Yeah, exactly. That is the phrase.
something happened to him. After he wrote the book and he went
No, that book was his textbook on quantum theory. But then he started interpreting it. Then he wrote that book of implicit some nature, I forget the name. And then he had interviews with Krishnamurti, implicate order. And he had interviews with Krishnamurti, and then he became kind of. You can say that's the reason he didn't get a Nobel Prize. That is true of many scientists actually.
Just because they don't fall into that mainstream.
You have heard of Norbert Wiener? Norbert Wiener. He was a child prodigy. He did PhD from MIT at the age of 14.
Oh.
And he became professor there. He is famous for his Wiener-Hoff theory of signal filtering and processing, which is used for all signal devices and filters and everything. He was a strong candidate for getting the Nobel Prize. But, he wrote a book then, Human Use of Human Beings. Human use of human beings, and that rattled the mainstream people. So this has happened all the time.
So he starts by this portraying that the sense of self is an illusion. And where that's where it's quoted and sent. But obviously, for all illusions, as soon as you see the illusion, it goes away. So you say that that's the only thing that you need to do. And in seeing who you are not, which is an illusion, the reality of who you are emerges automatically. And he then talks about how this whole illusion comes into the play in the process from the as we develop. So as a child, a child starts by calling himself not as an I, but as a third person. You take examples of Johnny is hungry. The child is Johnny, then Johnny is hungry as if he's not Johnny. It is something else. Then people when start to develop that, then he has to know that this is what I am. So I need to associate this concept of I with this body. Otherwise, before that, the child does not associate that.
I remember Krishna would call himself K.
Right.
And Krishna would be critics which say कि इतना weight आदमी अपना K बोलता है. It's like K does this. नहीं अच्छी वो लोग
उल्टा नहीं हो रहा।
आ गई थी
उल्टा नहीं हो रहा।
एक प्रोविंशियल था जिनका पता नहीं आ गया नंबरों का he mentioned about one person मतलब वो he used to call himself it so he used to tell his wife it needs steam
That's a good word.
so he made a fun of it and then no self this is how people can misinterpret no self. He says his life must have been either a bodhisattva or Arab. Tormented him for all the idiosyncrasies. It wants to go out for a walk.
Reminds me of a book by Oliver Sacks. A man who mistook his wife for a hat. For a hat. The name of a book. I haven't read it. He is a guy who wrote about medical.
But उसके प्रवचन में वो शायद बताते हैं कि how you can misinterpret no self and take it to that extent.
But I think that's what he is saying, that a child is because he is unaware, right? He has not learned those concepts, he uses it. But all of us learn it.
We condition it.
Right.
We are conditioned when the childhood to say, I am a boy, you are a boy, you are an Indian, and you are a Hindu, you are a Muslim, and then this is what a Hindu is, this is what a... So this is how conditioning is done. All of us are conditioned. Even adults are conditioned by the newspaper. You can figure it out. You are conditioned by that. By the things you interact with, people you interact with, they condition.
And as we take examples of this, the concept of Maya also very soon comes into the child's life, where the toy becomes my toy or somebody else's toy or a peer's toy. So when you take the toy away, the child starts to cry. Though the toy will become immaterial after 10 minutes, but the child starts to cry. And he says that nothing changes after that. The toy gets replaced by my car, my house, my He also my possession, so many other things. And he then he says that he calls it I thought. The I thought, we associate some thoughts to as I thought, and we identify that with. And as we grow up, we bring more thoughts and start to associate that with I thought, and we can actually see that we can create association or attachment to anything. For example, nationality, religion, race, they're all concepts. There is no physical boundary of a nation, but suddenly you could be very passionate about it. You could be passionate about a state also, your locality also, your own society also, when the society is competing with some other society. Your identity, yeah. You can take it very extent.
They are same, but you are saying an association with Modi. And with Modi.
I think Modi is a person, no? What is BJP? No person like BJP. Just a name given to it.
Sir, आज मैं चाय नहीं दूँगा. आज चाय नहीं दूँगा. Just के बाद.
क्या टेस्ट करा रहे हैं?
नहीं तो रेगुलर में कराता हूँ ना. Every 5 months, 4-5 months. नहीं सर वो जो मुझे अपने डॉक्टर के पास आना होता है तो उससे पहले मुझे सारे टेस्ट कराने होते हैं. बॉडी में कोई साइड इफेक्ट तो नहीं है मेडिसिन का. हाँ, so and he says that there is no I apart from the thought process and the emotions that go with it. We actually, for example, the example of IPL, you can easily see that this is self-created, but if you just extrapolate it back, you then start to see that many other things we are actually creating through mind. This now sense of I, and he uses the sense perceived body also as a thought that we associate I-ness to, sense perceived body. So that was very interesting, that we feel this body through our senses, and then we attach that feeling to a sense of I, that this is what I am. And that reminded me of something that we used to study in Science of Humanism, where can we locate the body and where it finishes and where the environment starts, and how we exchange all the atoms and all the molecules of the body with the environment 2 years, right? So 98% of it we exchange it within 2 years.
There is a discussion between Richard Dawkins and an environmental Satish Kumar. And he's saying, what is a tree? And Satish Kumar is saying the sunlight is the tree and the soil is the tree and all that. And Richard Dawkins is completely angry with him. What is he? Yeah.
Is a representative of the
materialists.
materialistic.
So he says, क्या बोल रहे हो तुम? Tree होती है. Why are you misleading and misinterpreting the meaning of words? So it's a big debate.
तो उसने वो बुक लिखी है ना, God Illusion. Somebody has written recently. I came to my book, Science Illusion. So that has been very highly taken as a book to bring out the research. Anybody should read both of them together and figure out. I don't know. मैंने अभी रिसेंटली वो ट्राईसाइकिल मैगजीन का आता है ना, उसमें एक आर्टिकल आया हुआ साइंस इल्यूजन. तो आजकल तो कुछ भी पूछने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. It's such a difficult thing. No? I just thought we understand it, but it's so difficult to really take it in that sense. Like I just so many thoughts come and go, but this damn thing stays around.
I think the most permanent thing about I that we feel is body, because we feel that is the thing that is not changing.
Because body is a concept, no?
Right.
But you say the moment you read the concept,
Right.
then we find a way. कौन सी body? मैं जरा आपने पिछले 50-60 साल की फोटो भी देखी, कौन सी वाली है? So you really immediately think, if you are kind of discerning enough, only the important चीज है ना.
And again, sir, if we start to look at ourselves in a microscope, we will not be able to locate our body. So
even in meditation, when you feel something, right? You feel they're changing all the time. Bodies. कभी कुछ हो रहा है, कभी उसकी shape ऐसी हो जाती है. When you get into a state where you feel the internal kind of movement of the internal shape. Shape itself, you can feel it. यहाँ से इधर चला जाता है, पेंसिल इधर से इधर चला जाता है, इधर से इधर चला जाता है. So you can't figure out where exactly is so-called body. You can figure out the head, because it is a touch feeling which gives you the head.
Actually, body, I think, is easier to dispense of as a eye concept, because people do understand that if you cut this hand, it doesn't take you away, the hand goes away. So, because it is physical, it is easy to dissociate it. The larger challenge is the thoughts, because you use the same thoughts to then say, this is not I. The thought is telling you that you are not this, then who is it? Who are you?
Yeah.
I think that is the harder part. And in fact, to a point where people have always thought that it is the mind that identifies you. So if you, there are all these kind of sci-fi. In fact, I once heard a very interesting interview with Professor Yashpal, who used to do a lot of scientific programs for children. He was in Sector 15 in Noida, actually. And he used to take questions from kids. And one kid once asked him that, won't it be nice if I transplant your brain into my body, then I become intelligent, really intelligent like you? And he said, think about it. You would not be taking my brain, I will be taking your body. So I will get a younger body. You would lose. Right? But then at least he identifies himself with his brain. That is the common thing. Body, people have understood that this is not to be, because changes can happen to the body. I think it's the mind which is hard to dissociate. That is the very difficult concept. Mind is not brain actually. No? That is another big issue.
माइंड चेंज नहीं होता
That is not the brain.
माइंड थोड़ी चेंज होता है बॉडी चेंज माइंड की जो थॉट्स है या जो हमारे विचार है
बॉडी में चेंज होती है, विचार को बदलती
विचार की
डेफिनेटली बदलती है। विचार तो एक सेकंड में
एक का स्वभाव रहता है स्वभाव उसमें का ढंग रहता है तो वो उसमें कोई जैसे कि साधना नहीं करे या कुछ नहीं है तब तक कुछ चेंज नहीं होता है उसके जो माइंड सेट है वो वही रहता है बचपन से एंड तक लेकिन बॉडी तो चेंज होती है माइंड सेट में इतना चेंजेस नहीं आते
वो मतलब कई बार लगता है, कई बार लगता है जीवन के अनुभव के हिसाब से बदलता रहता है ना, जीवन के अनुभव से बदलता रहता है, साधना करे से न करे।
मतलब अनुभव से बदलता है लेकिन यदि किसी को मानो गुस्सा आता है और वो गुस्से वाले कदम गुस्से से वापस यदि शांत
गुस्सा जो आता है ना उसको हम पर्सनली लेते हैं, यही सबसे बड़ी दिक्कत है। गुस्सा जो है वो कंडीशन फिनोमिना है, ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई गुस्से वाला और कोई कम गुस्से वाला, ऐसा नहीं है। टेंडेंसी है, सिर्फ एक टेंडेंसी रहती है।
मन का ही तो है
हाँ, उसकी टेंडेंसी है कि वो जल्दी प्रोवोक हो रहा है। अगर वो उसको ऐसी एनवायरनमेंट मिल जाए जहाँ वो प्रोवोक ना हो उसका गुस्सा नहीं उठेगा।
बस प्रभु करते हैं जैसे प्रभु की सिचुएशन आती है
सिचुएशन के कारण हो रहा है।
बट सिचुएशन इज नॉट रिस्पॉन्सिबल मतलब हम अपने आप को इसको ऐसा होना चाहिए कि उसको सिचुएशन भी आई शुड नॉट गेट एंग्री
We are not saying what should be, we are saying what is, not what should be. Should be is the difference. Regarding the brain, I would like to suggest you study about it because it's a powerful book written by a book on feelings, research done on feeling. मैंने शायद पहले बताया था Damasio, Antonio Damasio. He was the first person to have ventured into neurological studies of feelings, and that he did on the basis of accidental discovery. कि एक न्यूरोलॉजिस्ट था तो न्यूरोसर्जन है शायद, तो वो जो एक्सीडेंट हो जाता है ना जिनके ब्रेन का फिर ऑपरेशन करना पड़ता है, तो किसी का कोई पार्ट ऑफ द ब्रेन निकाल दिया कुछ कर दिया, तो उन्होंने एक नोट किया कि कुछ लोगों का जैसे एक तो इसे नोट किया कुछ पार्ट ऑफ द ब्रेन मान लो विजुअल पोर्शन ऑफ ब्रेन हटा दिया, ऐसा नहीं है कि अंधे हो गए, तो मुझे वो हटाई दिया तो देख के फिर आया हमारी थ्योरी कहाँ गई। सो दैट गिव राइज टू दैट थ्योरी ऑफ होलोग्राफ, दैट्स वन consequence of study of brain. The other more powerful consequence was that they studied that if there is a certain portion frontal cortex or something, अगर उस पे कोई डैमेज हो जाए या चेंज हो जाए तो बंदे का बिहेवियर बदल जाता है। तो प्रॉब्लम था ये कैसे हो गया, एक गुस्से से आता था, गुस्से वाला बंदा बहुत, एक उन्होंने स्टडी किया था एक बंदे को जिसको वो वर्कशॉप में काम कर रहा था, तो एक डूइंग ऑन सम वेल्डिंग और रीडिंग, तो एक रॉड आके हिट करके उसके ब्रेन से इधर से पार आ गए, ऐसा संयोग मरा नहीं, तो रॉड इसका ऑपरेशन करके निकाल दी और फिर उसके बाद ठीक भी हो गया। फिर दोबारा आया वर्कशॉप में तो देखा लोगों ने उसको तो व्यापारी बदल के सारे इतना मिलनसार हो गया, अभी हमेशा गुस्सा करते रहता है, क्या हो गया। सो देन दे स्टडीड दैट एंड व्हेन ही डाइड उसका ब्रेन उसका जो स्कल था वो प्रिजर्व रखा फॉर फ्यूचर स्टडी, कि हमें जो पता नहीं चल रहा। देन दीज पीपल स्टडीड इट एंड फाउंड आउट क्या हुआ। तो वो पोर्शन जो ब्रेन का है उसकी खासियत यह है इट सेंसेस द सेंसेशंस इन द बॉडी, इट फील्स, इट हैज द एबिलिटी टू फील। अगर वो पोर्शन खराब हो जाए तो आदमी को अपने शरीर पे क्या हो रहा है उसकी समझना नहीं मालूम पड़ेगा, ही इज नॉट बी एबल टू फिगर इट आउट। सो देन ही इज नॉट एबल टू रैशनलाइज कि क्या हो रहा है, हाउ इज द वर्ल्ड इनपुटिंग ऑन मी। सो द आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ brain with the mind is therefore to be questioned, at least on empirical ground. तो था ही था, तो वो उसने फिर पूरी स्टडी and he has done, he has written a number of books now on that and very powerful. He is not a meditator but he is a professor of neurosciences and he has written books on feelings, what we call as Vedana, how feelings and emotions का distinction किया पहली बार। साइंटिस्ट नॉर्मली इतना करने की हिम्मत नहीं करते, try to distinguish it and show how change in feelings give rise to emotion and all. वो जो ब्रेन का आइडिया वो भी is not perfectly correct. So it's all a imagination really.
लेकिन कुछ ब्रेन होता है जैसे मेरा ब्रेन आपका ब्रेन, मतलब वो ब्रेन से ही पता चलता है कि विचार कैसे मिलेगा।
अभी तक तो नहीं पता, अभी तक नहीं पता।
और वो फिर किस तरह से पता चलता है? जैसे ब्रेन मेरे में आया, खाली ब्रेन से नहीं पता चलता, मेरे शरीर में
तो जेनेटिक फैक्टर्स और पता नहीं क्या क्या है वो पता ही नहीं चलता ना, किस तरह के कैसे उसके संस्कार हैं वो अभी तक तो नहीं पता चला है कि कोई एक्सपेरिमेंट कर लें या टेस्ट कर लें, उससे नहीं पता।
इमोशंस अंदर क्या चल रही है इस पे काफ़ी रिसर्च हुई है। जैसे फंक्शनल एमआरआई होती है, उससे आप एक्साइटेड हैं, आप सैड हैं, हैप्पी हैं, क्या फीलिंग आ रही है, उससे अलग अलग पोर्शन ऑफ द ब्रेन लाइट अप हो जाते हैं हमारे। अच्छा, तो उस पर काफ़ी रिसर्च हुई है फंक्शनल एमआरआई से, लेकिन एग्जैक्टली क्या सोच रहा है आदमी वो नहीं अभी क्या पता लगता, लेकिन इमोशंस क्या काफ़ी हद तक फंक्शनल एमआरआई में आ जाता है।
स्टडी करें ना जिन्होंने ध्यान का जो इफेक्ट किया था स्टडी, जैसे उसका मैथ्यू
फंक्शनल एमआरआई
उसका भी वही रिकॉर्ड जो है उसका देखा था कि वो ध्यान करते करते एकदम शांत हो जाता है, then the alpha waves become more and all that. बट किसी के ब्रेन को देख के ये बताना कि ये गुस्से वाला है कि नहीं, पॉसिबल है अभी तक तो नहीं पॉसिबल हुआ है, बिकॉज इट इज ए गुस्सा जो है ना वो प्रोवोकेशन से अराइज होता है, इट्स नॉट स्टोर्ड विद इन द पर्सन, बट हम कहते हैं कि उसका संस्कार ऐसा है, तो वो कहाँ है वो नहीं पता चलता,
किसी में नहीं डाला
वो पता नहीं चलता कि गुस्सा कहाँ स्टोर्ड है। अगर पता चल जाए तो उसको निकाल दे भाई, नहीं? अगर पता ही चल जाए तो we can easily remove it out.
बिना चीनी वाले मेजॉरिटी में हो गए।
अभी चीनी
Comment from Silesh, another great book is Untethered Soul by M. Singer. Very relevant to this discussion.
अच्छा क्या नाम है?
Untethered Soul. So we close on this.
अभी करना पूरा कितना है और काफी है क्या?
सर ये वाला स्लाइड कर लेते हैं because this is very relevant to the last discussion that we were having. This is an interesting story that he has quoted in an example where he says that he was going through a subway, which is metro train, and he is a young lady in 20s in front of her, and she was mumbling, she was speaking to herself, thinking loudly. And she was expressing almost all emotions, completely unaware of where she is sitting. She was angry. She was saying, "How could you do this to me?" And all the stuff like that. And everybody was amazed, how mad this lady is. And he became curious that what does she do? And incidentally, both of them got up at the same station. And he said that till the time we are going the same way, let me follow her and try to see where does she go. And she seems to go in the way where he was going. And interestingly, he was a philosophy student at that time in a pretty good university. And she entered the same building. And at that time, he was like completely completely amazed that somebody who's, what is she? Is she a professor or a student or a librarian or what? But if somebody who's studying or associated with such a high level of intelligence or study can become something like this, right? And he said, will I become like that? Because I'm just first year student. If people study, when they study here, they become like that. And he enters the washroom. And he was washing his face, and then he finds that somebody is looking at him in awe because he was speaking to himself loudly. Will I become something like that?
So everybody is equally mad.
Right. And then he says that she was thinking out loud. I thought mostly in my head. Mostly I am thinking.
थोड़ा सा ही फर्क है.
Yes. But if she was mad, then everybody is.
She was actually lesser mad. She was expressing herself smoothly without needing to conceal things and keep it to herself.
rest we will maybe take up next time.
है कितने हैं स्लाइड्स?
अभी तो सर चैप्टर बहुत बड़ा है.
अच्छा, ये बड़ा है.
Slides,
हाँ, ये चैप्टर काफी बड़ा है. गुड.
I think these two chapters are focused completely on ego and
नेक्स्ट भी है.
yes, next is core of ego. And then he starts to say how do we come out of it.
बस थ्योरी देन उसकी प्रैक्टिस भी है ना कि हाउ डू वी इम्प्लीमेंट इट एंड ऑल दैट.
Right.